Last week, the biggest thing was that Yuli Edelstein, the chairman of the Knesset, would not put himself up for re-election, which is the first thing the Knesset does after swearing in the new Knesset members, and that prevents the Knesset to start functioning. The reason being that right now there's a majority in the Knesset, in our parliament, that is against Netanyahu, who's from Edelstein's party. The Supreme Court basically ordered Edelstein to open up the Knesset, and he refused. This was backed up by parliament members and ministers from the Israeli right, and he decided to resign. This entire business bought this interim government that we now have about another week, during which the Knesset didn't function. And since this is an interim government, not elected, who's now functioning under an emergency state, so it can pass all sorts of regulations however it sees fit, there's an interest there, so there's no Knesset, there's no parliament that oversees it. In the midst of all this, Benny Gantz has the mandate to form his new government, and there was a lot of pressure. He basically had three options. The first option is to form a coalition with the Arab parties. There were two members of his party that said that if he were to do this, they would not vote for it, meaning that he would lose his majority. So this was kind of a no-go. Option number two was to form a national unity government with Netanyahu's party. Now, the main reason Gantz was such an attractive candidate for many people is that he came to represent the opposite of what Netanyahu represents. He stated that he wants to unify people, he wants to be more ethical. Benny Gantz is a right-wing candidate, and still many left-wing voters voted for him under the pretense that he will replace Netanyahu. His partners, Bughi Ya'alon, former Minister of Security, and Yair Lapid, former Minister of Treasury, both were in the government under Netanyahu, and they vetoed it. There was a third option, and the third option was to form the majority in the Knesset, support this interim government as long as it's dealing with the corona crisis, but in the meanwhile, pass a law that if someone is accused of criminal charges, he cannot be prime minister. That means that even if they would have to go to a fourth election, then he would still not be facing Netanyahu. Gantz has just decided to go into a national unity government with Netanyahu. This is a huge betrayal in about 50% of his voters, because he's rewarding Netanyahu for using all the dirtiest tricks against him. Here's what's going to happen now. Gantz is going into a national unity government. His former partners, Bughi Ya'alon and Yair Lapid, quit. They're going to the opposition, and he's joining Netanyahu's government. Now, Netanyahu is going to be prime minister first for the next year and a half. Then Gantz is supposed to replace him. It seems like everyone, aside from Gantz, knows that this is never going to happen. In about 6 months or a year from now, Netanyahu is going to make up a crisis, go to the fourth election, and then Gantz wouldn't even be a factor after betraying his voters, and Netanyahu again will be the only alternative. It's so out in the open that Netanyahu is lying about this, which is something that his opponents hate about him, and his supporters are proud because he can manipulate everyone, to the point that Netanyahu himself said, when he's making this offer to Gantz, this time it's without any tricks or shticks. This time he actually means it. The biggest issue is that the next couple months are critical because Netanyahu is supposed to face trial in May, the trial he has just postponed a week ago. Now, if he's prime minister, he keeps all the power, and he will definitely not be facing trial. How do I know that Netanyahu has no intention in facing trial? Check out my next video.